Yes, in my city, we say, what up, though? What up, though? Okay, keep that same energy, Detroit. And on the count of 3, I want you to yell out your first names as fast as you can. 1, 2, 3. Hey, baby. Now, those names that you just yelled out represent something phenomenal, that you are willing to agree to something related to your identity that you had no hand in creating. So in that way, the names that we accept from our parents become the first of many very powerful agreements. See, our agreements are our learned familial and societal rules, and they shape our entire lives. They govern our goals, our behaviors, our stances, okay? They are the mirror in which we see ourselves, and they are the lens through which we see and build narratives about others. Our agreements are simultaneously our bias and our clarity. Our agreements govern our mindset, whether they are growth or fixed, open or closed, and our agreements dictate our authenticity, okay? How we show up in the world. It's the reason why I walked out here like I'm 7 feet tall, even though I'm only 4'10", okay? Our agreements shape our entire lives, and where we hold positions of power and privilege in society, our agreements shape the lives of others. Now, this beautiful woman here she was my maternal grandmother. Her name was Pearline Johnson, born in 1933 in Corinth, Mississippi, or as she called it, Corinth, Mississippi. She was born in Corinth. And my grandmother loved us something fierce. She told me I was beautiful. She told me I was intelligent. And she spoke life into my dreams as a child. And she also taught me one of the worst agreements I had ever made in my entire life. It was called the 2X myth. That's what I call it. And it's the possibility, it's the belief that women and Black, Indigenous people of color have to work twice as hard as their white male counterparts to have equal pay and recognition. Now let the inefficiency of that sink in for a moment. Okay, but my grandmother's agreements were born out of fear during periods in a lifetime of systemic racism and oppression, and her very real fear of white people. But see, I was born and I was raised in the 1980s on the west side of Detroit. And frankly, west side, I didn't know very many white people, frankly. So my grandmother's words did not resonate with me. They didn't have an impact on me, so I thought. And it wasn't until I started my first job right out of college. I was working only in downtown Detroit at the Renaissance Center, but I was a world away from the West Side. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was permanently surrounded by whiteness. But I had come from an all-Black world. So I was at home and feeling out of place. Imagine that for a moment. Okay? Let that sink in. And all of a sudden, all of my grandmother's agreements started to come alive, and I was triggered. I didn't even know they were in there. I was triggered, and I was showing up early and staying late, working twice as hard as everybody, stressing myself out. And I was playing the part. I was code switching my voice to sound like this, and I was dressing in clothes that were bland, no bright colors, no big hair, no princess. Okay? I was playing the game, okay? Now, when we make these agreements, they cost us something. So imagine me having graduated from Renaissance, the #1 high school in this city, having studied international business at a private university, having mastered Spanish at la Universidad Complutense in España. Imagine that. Imagine me getting the job I wanted at a risk management firm in downtown Detroit, right out of college, the job I wanted. But imagine me not being driven by my work ethic or my talent or all the things my grandmother poured into me, but by the fear she put in me. Imagine me living that life and having a fear that ran so deep that it turned into an ulcer. And now imagine the day that my boss looked me in the face and said, "Princess, you don't look like a risk manager." I was devastated. You see, it doesn't matter where our agreements come from. When we align ourselves to fear-based thinking, we perpetuate the very systems designed to marginalize us. And it was in that moment that I knew I had to take a risk, that I had to risk breaking bad agreements or allow them to break my spirit. And see, a risk is the possibility of harm or loss to something of value. And bad agreements have a whole lot of risk. The risk of loss of sleep, depression, anxiety, failure to negotiate your salaries. Who could use an extra $7,500 a year? That's the average that we fail to negotiate. That's what we lose out on annually at the risk of making bad agreements. Businesses suffer too. Businesses suffer lack of productivity, lack of collaboration, while turnover runs high and DE&I initiatives fall flat as the people in the back that were code switching their voices and being paid lower wages and silently suffering are now silently quitting. Okay, so you see, in that way, agreements are never a one-sided problem. But I believe that there's something that we can do to break bad agreements. I believe that if we dare for ourselves and we care for others, we can break bad agreements. When we dare, we define, analyze, reframe, and we embark. We define who we are, what we believe, what we're willing to tolerate, and where our agreements came from. Like that one example that came from my grandmother. Then we analyze, we consider where our agreements came from, and we ask two very important questions. What are these agreements costing me today in terms of my time, energy, resource, and self-respect? And do these agreements serve me well today? And we give ourselves permission to say, no, these do not serve me well today, and to change them. And that's what R is about, reframing. We have to literally close our eyes and visualize new lives for ourselves. And here we hold space to forgive ourselves. We forgive others. We have bold conversations. We draw new boundaries, and we seek wise counsel. And then when we get to that all-important E, baby, we embark, okay? We embark with the audacity to reclaim our identities, reinvent ourselves, and reintroduce ourselves to the culture with whoever we want to be. And where we have and hold positions of power and privilege in society, in our homes, and around the world, we have to care for others. And when we care, we challenge, we accept, we reframe, and we empathize. We challenge the narratives and the bias that we build and hold for others, those agreements that our parents unknowingly poured into us when they were just trying to love us. Okay, we challenge those, and we challenge the status quo on laws and policies that serve a few at the expense of many. And then we accept people exactly where they are in life. We don't expect everybody to get on my level, hope. Okay, that's a hip hop reference for the people in the back. We don't expect that. We don't expect you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, because frankly, not everybody has boots. Okay, and then that intersection, that powerful intersection of dare and care, we reframe not just ourselves, but we reimagine and visualize our entire systems and imagine ways to change the world. And last but not least, we empathize. And guess what? You never need another lesson in empathy again after today, because you are masters of it. You know how I know? Because all day you have been sitting quietly, actively listening. You have been laughing. I heard you. You have been laughing. You have been crying. You have been leaning into the pain and grief and discomfort of other people's stories, and you have seen yourselves in those stories. And that, my friends, is empathy. You are already a master of it. Now go do that. Go do just that with a person of another race, religion, gender identity, and dare I say, political party. I'm gonna go hug a Republican right now. I'm Princess Castleberry.
Come on back out again. I'll tell you what, Princess looks like